I don't know about you, but I do not feel motivated by, encouraged by, attracted to arrogance. I think it's one of the most ugly personality traits that a person can possess. Why do you have to lord over and feel bigger than your neighbor? It's just unnecessary, right? It's an unwarranted attitude of superiority. And we can all just go around acting important and overly dramatizing the things that we've accomplished or the things that we have or the things that we've done. And what goal would we be achieving? What would we be achieving by being that way? Arrogant is basically an exaggeration of one's own abilities or position in life. And even when there is no real example of success or favoritism in that person's life, they still have an arrogant disposition. It's this know-it-all disposition that says, I'm smarter than you, I'm better than you, I know more than you, I've been exposed to more than you. And that may or may not be true, but in the mind of the arrogant person, it is true. Arrogance is a smokescreen. It's perpetuated over time by internal feelings of insecurity. Experiences in life that have been unpleasant, really feeling inadequate themselves. And the only way that they know how to feel confident or comfortable is to lord over you and to make you think and feel like you are the worst person in the world. I'm going to be breaking down in today's video the different kinds of arrogance. There are actually 3 types of arrogance that psychology research has identified, and these individuals are pretty interesting because they tend to be of the same mindset. It's almost like these 3 types of arrogant people have actually sat down at the same table and they know each other's behaviors and thoughts and feelings. Because most people who exhibit arrogance, and I've seen this in my private practice, I've seen this in my personal life, coworkers have talked to me about this, these individuals tend to have the same constellation of symptoms. Symptom A, B, and C tends to be very common in the same individual with the arrogant disposition. What these individuals fail to realize is your arrogant disposition, your condescending remarks, your know-it-all disposition is hurting you, hurting them. They don't understand that. What they see is their own inadequacies in front of them. They don't care that they are not really what they say they are. It's almost like trying to cover a wound. Let's say, for example, you've cut yourself. You feel that other people really don't need to know that I've cut myself. So what I'm going to do is put this Band-Aid on, and I hope that this Band-Aid covers the fact that my wound is deep and it may not heal correctly, and I may need stitches for it, but I'm going to cover it with this Band-Aid in hopes that nobody else sees how bad this is. And that is basically the mindset of an arrogant individual. They don't want you to see the deep wounds that they carry. So what do? They cover their wounds with a Band-Aid, and the Band-Aid is arrogance. That's the only way that they know how to protect themselves. Now, for those of you who feel like, you have somebody like this in your life, you're probably wondering what the difference between narcissism and arrogance is. Let me explain that to you. So there's a couple of reasons, and I'm not going to get into them in this video, but there's a couple of reasons why narcissism and arrogance are different. Narcissism is a personality disorder, and the key word there is disorder. It's a pervasive chronic pattern of behavior over time that has been influenced by environment, maybe slightly influenced by genetics, and has also been influenced by life experience. So life experience and environmental experience kind of shapes and molds the individual into this narcissistic person. And it's really hard for that person to kind of unravel themselves from that narcissistic mindset. An arrogant individual may have at some level a level of empathy, affective empathy. They can actually at times put themselves in the shoes of the other person. They may also be able to identify how their own disposition is destroying them. They can't see it right away, and they may never be able to see it on their own. But if you point it out, or a therapist points it out, or they have a repeated pattern of experiences that are similar, of being rejected, of being minimized, of being told they're arrogant, they may actually have a small chance to turn and reshape their behavior. Arrogance is a personality trait, and it's truly a lack of self-awareness. But I do believe, and some research does support, that arrogant individuals may have an opportunity to change under the right circumstances. A narcissist does not. That's just not who they are. And it's going to be a lot more complicated because they have a pervasive pattern of behavior. Let me also say that these individuals have a failure of perspective taking. They don't have the ability to empathize with somebody else and say, okay, wait a minute. If that person over there came up to me and said, I just won this prize. I have a lot of money. I'm on YouTube. This is my job. Do you want to follow me? Just thought you might learn something from me if you watch my videos. If somebody did that, right? It is very clear that they have an inability to perspective take. They have an inability to say, now, what if that person did that to me? How would I feel? They really do have a limited ability to be empathic. Let me also add in here a distortion of reality. Most individuals who are arrogant have a distortion of reality. Their reality is skewed. And the reality is skewed because they see themselves in such grandiose ways. So if you feel like you have somebody like this in your life, or, you feel like somebody in your family is this way, or a coworker, you're going to want to keep watching. So let's talk about the issues that tends to sink individuals who are very arrogant. The number one issue that seems to really take a hold in a person's life who's arrogant is poor relationships and drama. How in the world can their relationships be healthy when, they're constantly lording over other people? They're very grandiose in their thoughts about themselves. They have a sense of superiority and supremacy that says, I am better than you. I just am. I'm innately better than you. Why? Because I have a better car, because I have a better job, because I have a certain skin color, because I have a certain way that I speak and carry myself, because I've been to this place, I've traveled to this country. It's always a comparison between them and the other individual. And that, in addition to a loss of empathy, a loss of self-awareness, a loss of self-esteem, because of those things, a relationship can't survive. Now, maybe the other person is healthy and able to survive, but the arrogant individual may not be. It's also very poor quality. An arrogant person has a way that they kind of go inside their own mind and they talk to themselves in a way that comes out in how they deal with other people. You have somebody like that in your world. Do you want to be attached to that? I wouldn't. I would be of the disposition of, let's divorce. Let's break up. I don't want to be a friend to you, and I'm not going to work this job because I don't want to come here every day and you're in this psychological fantasy that you are better than the next person. That's not what we're going to do here, so I'm out. And I'm sure you feel the same way. So these individuals tend to really suffer when it comes to relationships because they don't know how to engage in them without comparing. There's also self-aggrandizement, right? Which is kind of like, I see myself in these big, major, grandiose ways. I'm such an awesome person. I'm sorry people can't see that in me. There's also disillusionment. They're very much in a fantasy about themselves and what they feel they've accomplished. Delusional thinking at a certain level, because these individuals may actually look at someone who is very skilled and say, I'm better than that. even though they've never had an experience in that person's, area of expertise, but they may actually feel that they are better. There's also reduced cooperation in the workplace. They feel that they're too big to take orders. They're too important to be told what to do. They're too important to be asked to be somewhere at a certain time. I've seen this in the past with clients who are contract workers. They fail to realize, and these were several clients that I had a couple of years ago, they all had a failure of an understanding of where they were, what was being asked of them, and what they could and could not do. There was a reduced cooperation in the workplace. They felt that, we're contract workers, we call our own shots. You're not going to tell me, when to be here or there. You're not going to tell me what to do. You're not going to ask me to do A, B, and C. That's not my job description. And even though it was their job description and they misinterpreted it, they still felt that they had a right to stand their ground. And believe it or not, all 5 of my clients were fired. They were released from their contract because the arrogant disposition was this, that I'm a contract worker, I call my own shots, you're not going to ask me to do anything, you're not going to tell me what to do. There's a thin line sometimes between what's really independence and what is actually in the contract for an individual contractor. And so you have to figure out what that line is and what that boundary is. You can't just jump out into the world and say, you know what, I'm going to get, this job and I'm going to sign this contract, but I call my shots. Not always. And so they were all fired. And some are still unemployed as I know it today. And that's because they can't take any direction. There is also a lack of effective empathy towards other people. These kind of individuals do lord over others and they don't care to explore why they do it. And sometimes even if they do see the damage they're causing another individual, they still continue on down that road. Why? Because at that moment they feel that they are better. They're better than you. And because of that, they have the right to treat you any way they want. Condescending behavior is also involved and multiple defense mechanisms, we can talk about defense mechanisms all day long, but let me just highlight a few. There's denial. Sometimes there is displacement, right? I don't feel important, so I'm going to go home and abuse everybody because that makes me feel important, right? There is also this increased level of arrogance and superiority and attitude, and that kind of keeps them up here, even if they don't deserve to be up there. At least in their mind, they feel that they are better, and then they can kind of assess things a little bit better, and they feel a little bit more comfortable because they see themselves up here. Now, what are the 3 kinds of arrogance? Well, there's individual arrogance. It's basically an individual who has no real success. They may or may not have skills in the area that they think they do. In their mind, they've pumped themselves up to be better than everybody. There's also this inflated sense of self. There's grandiosity. Now, the second kind of arrogance is competitive arrogance. And to me, this is the most embarrassing because an individual may say something like, oh, that's a psychologist over there. Well, I took a bunch of psychology classes and because of that, I probably know more than her. A person who is playing golf may say, you know what? I really like Tiger Woods, but I'm better than Tiger Woods. I am, right? They may even go so far as to say Serena Williams is the world's toughest female when it comes to tennis, but guess what? So am I. And if I ever had a chance to play her, I would totally win. Competitive arrogance. Antagonistic arrogance. This is hostile, angry, aggressive, right? It's kind of this kind of arrogance that makes that individual feel like they're better than the next person, right? And they walk around puffed up, chest up, sometimes they walk around with their arms out. If we're talking about a guy, it's kind of this disposition like I will beat you, hurt you, minimize you, pound you to the ground. I am better. And that antagonistic arrogance may be the person that you see on the road with a very nice shined up vehicle, spin wheels, arm out the window, smoking a cigarette, music blasting, and gypping everybody in line, getting in front of everybody, driving unsafe, and still feeling no guilt about it. It's very hostile. It's very arrogant. it's very ugly. So how do these kind of personalities impact you? Well, let's say, you're the problem and you always will be the problem. If you have a very arrogant family member in your life, or you're in a relationship with someone like this, you're the reason why. That's basically it. You're the reason why. The next thing is they may accuse you of being a narcissist. Can you believe that? I'm sure it's happened and you probably were shocked, but these kind of individuals have a failure of perspective taking. They don't know how to be in your shoes. They don't know how to look at things in a insightful, mature manner. So sometimes all they have is their words, and they may actually accuse you of being narcissistic, and they may actually read you your rights and then tell you on top of that they don't want to have anything to do with you. And it's not necessarily or always because of something you've done. Sometimes it's because they feel inferior to you. So it gets really twisted and really skewed if you're not careful. There's also a loss of your own identity. How can you see yourself? How can you get to know who you are as a person when you've got this big, puffed up, hostile, arrogant person all around you? What you're going to do, and most people do this as a defense mechanism, is they kind of shrink themselves and they become smaller. They go along with everything. They placate things, right? And sometimes, and sadly, I hate when this happens, they go ahead and they continue to fill that person's head up with tons of lies so that they can have some peace of mind. You may also notice a feeling of emotional hangover, right? If you think about an alcoholic hangover, you can almost have an emotional hangover, because this kind of an individual, especially if they are competitive arrogant, they really do tire you out. You may feel like you've just been assaulted by their words and their disposition and their attitude all day long. And if you're married to somebody like this, or you live with somebody like this, or you're a family member to somebody like this, you're going to feel exhausted, right? You may not feel it in the moment, but you may feel it in the next day. They drain you and suck all the energy out of you like a vampire. You may also feel shut down. Why do I want to go neck and neck with you, toe to toe to you, right? Why do I want to go toe to toe with you, I should say? Because all you're going to do is make me feel small. All you're going to do is pull out all my weaknesses. So you know what? That's okay. I pass. I'm just going to shrink and I'm going to act like nothing is happening. So you may shut down completely. You may ask them to go to therapy. Okay, they'll go to therapy. But they're going to go to therapy and make it your problem. You're the reason why they're arrogant. You're the reason why they feel insecure. You're the reason why you guys have arguments. Again, they lack self-awareness and sometimes even empathy. You may also feel really, really small and inadequate yourself, especially if you have had a very arrogant family member. It's really easy to have arrogant family members and then get into the world and not necessarily attract arrogant people into your world, but you may find yourself kind of succumbing to an individual who is arrogant because that's all you know. So, you do want to look at the people that you're bringing into your world, because there is a pattern of abuse. There's also a pattern of trauma. And if that person in your world is an arrogant person, it's likely that you could reenact that with somebody else. How do you feel about this, guys? It's pretty interesting, right? Join me on Friday and Saturday in my live chats as I pick and pull this apart just a little bit more for you. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.